So what did you guys have to do to get a ticket to that studio? Come on, only the big time people get to be there.
No, we're just in New York.
We just happen to be here.
We just happen to be here.
So are you adults or are you acting like kids in New York?
A little bit of both, yeah. A little bit of both.
We got to talk. Bill and I are both wedding DJs, and your podcast on the wedding was the most eye-opening, entertaining podcast I have heard in a very, very long time because I could relate with it so deeply.
Well, so you're around it all the time, right? I mean, you see people who are kind of just bumbling through it the way Molly and I bumble through most things.
Yeah.
But it's like anything. It's if you really delve into it and kind of like the history of the wedding and the roles and responsibility of being a party, being part of the wedding party, or being a maid of honor, or being a best man. Like there is a lot of tradition there. There is a lot of things that that is expected of you and or not expected of you. But the more you know about it, the better you can do it. I mean. I'm sure you have a lot of great stories from some of the weddings.
Oh, my God. I want to write a book about it, but at the same time, everybody that's going to read the books go, yeah, I've seen that. This is nothing new. But I'll tell you what, the shocker part, though, the parents aren't part of the wedding party. That I about drove off the road.
And what we learned is it's up to you.
Mm-hmm. But it's super interesting. Yeah, I thought the same thing that, like, mother of the bride, father of the bride, or, whatever, that is... that they were just kind of included. I mean, they walked down the aisle with the rest of the wedding party. You would assume that they're part of it, but yeah, technically not. It's fascinating.
But if you wanted to, and you can break with tradition there to have your parents be in your wedding party, to stand up there with you on the day, that you are definitely within your rights to do that if that's what you want. I
like the way that you guys go into the history of the wedding party itself, because at one point in time in history, they were there for a reason, to protect. And that's one of the things as an officiant that I will sit there in that wedding ceremony, and I will talk to each and every one of them while the wedding is going on, saying, this is your responsibility. If this wedding, if this couple breaks up, I'm going to come to you and ask what you didn't do, and to put the pressure on them.
Yeah, it's a fraught history for sure. You had I think it was the ancient Romans who were, it was to, they all dressed like the bride and groom to protect them against, wrongdoing, because it would confuse malevolent spirits, angry gods, etc.
And the best man was the best swordsman, who was there to protect the bride, or to
straight up kidnap her in some situations. Yeah, and that was like I said, it's a fraught history sometimes.
And so there's not so many swords involved in our day and age. But yeah, I mean, if you really want to show up for the wedding party, the bride and the groom, to do things like, throw them their parties, to get them a gift, and to really just show up and be the support on the day, which is a very emotional day, a very fraught day, and just support them.
Yeah, and I thought it was fascinating that the only thing you're expected to go to as a wedding attendant is the wedding and the rehearsal dinner.
I thought that was interesting too. And one of the things that I was going to go on as well is the fact when you say bring the gifts, and go broke, because every time you go to a party, you've got to bring the gift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that's something that has kind of filtered through every episode that we've done, is that, like, you really have to decide for yourself how much you've really got to make a budget for yourself. It's not that you, just because your budget is lower doesn't mean you automatically can't go. I mean, obviously, if you can't afford a plane ticket, that's one thing. But just because you are obligated to get a gift doesn't mean that can't be something sentimental, something that you make yourself and is meaningful to the relationship that you have with that person. And you can give them that, and honestly, that's probably going to be more meaningful than a toaster. Am I right? Like maybe a handwritten note and a picture of you and your best friend. Like that's something that I would care more about than a toaster.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that you cover, in fact, I can't even say one of the things, the many, many, many things that you cover in this is very much very real. The name of the podcast for listeners is Grown-Up Stuff, How to Adult. I love what you guys do with the dog story, because for some people who don't have dogs, they don't get it. For instance, in the studio with me right now is my dog. My dog is my life.
Yeah.
What is your dog's name?
Jazzy.
Oh.
And what kind of dog?
Well, she's a pointer, but I've rescued 9 dogs, and so the connection between them and I are it's like learning how to deal with a dog that's been through trauma, and it's having the patience and what really happens is that I become her pet, and so she takes me for a walk. She reminds me when it's dinner time. And that's what I love about dogs, and so and I love the way that you guys do the real side, the yin and yang of owning dogs.
Yeah, that it can be really wonderful and it can be really challenging. And I think you went one of those routes. And for a lot of people, the challenging thing is going through puppyhood.
Yeah.
Like a puppy is learning how to go to the bathroom, and they're learning about their social world, and they're developing antibodies and their health. And so that can be really draining on first time parents, having a new puppy. But, the flip side of it, if you are, bringing a dog into your life that has been through that kind of trauma, maybe they've got the pottying down and all that stuff, but there's other things to be sensitive to in that situation. But that if you do put in the time and the effort, you can really come out the other side in a relationship that like you have with your dog.
Yeah, and I want a dog so badly, and for those exact reasons, is I actually need to be a pet to the dog. For exactly how you phrased it. I need the dog to walk me so I get outside. I need to remind me it's dinner time. But then the other thing that we realize is the financial responsibility that you're taking on too.
Yes.
And it's a lot. Like, it's a lot of money. And to really think about, do I have the budget in line to help support this, and especially cover costs that might come up, medical costs that might come up for a dog. And that was the sad realization where I'm like, I don't think I'm ready yet.
Yeah, and what we will pay to have our dogs fixed, because the thing is that my Maltese a few years back swallowed a penny, and when they said it's going to cost $8,000 to have this dog to get that, because the dog had zinc poisoning, and I forked it out. I absolutely, there was no way I was going to say no to my dog.
Yeah. And I think that, like, if you're ready to make that commitment and you're ready to like be there for that dog, like you can have the Instagram moments, like you can have the fun moments, and you can have the zoomies, and you can have the snuggles, but you do have to accept both sides of that coin.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that at 61, I refuse to grow up. I'm still a 16-year-old, and so that's what I think that I love about this podcast, is that you give me things to look forward to and things to reflect on.
Well said. And I think that's something that, like, it's difficult when you are becoming an adult, when you are graduating college and you're stepping into your own, is, you want to pretend like you know everything, and you want to feel like I can do my taxes. I can reallocate my 401k payment, but we're not taught that stuff in school. We're not taught it in high school. We're not taught it in college. And so it can be difficult to say, like, hey, like, I don't know this. And I think a lot of people are kind of just like white knuckling it through life. But if you have, that moment where you say, you know what, I actually don't know this, you open yourself up to the possibility of learning something. And that's, Molly and I we're in our mid-late 30s, and we're still acknowledging, one step at a time, that the things that we don't know. And I think in a lot of ways that does keep us young, that we're able to look at life through the eyes of like a learner, that we're here to learn today. And, we are going to gain wisdom, and we are going to get older in the process, but it's a continual process. It's never going to stop. And I think that if you do keep that approach to life, that you will always feel young. I mean, I still feel like I'm 25.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the amount of things I do not know about life is just truly astounding. And it's the other thing too, that we talk about, obviously these very basic, health insurance, retirement, buying a car or leasing a car, but we also talk about some of the more complex things like, hey, it's the holidays and we're going to be around family. How do you manage family dynamics? Because that's the other thing. The older you get, the more complicated that part of your life also gets.
Yeah. And it's also easy to say that, like, oh, family dynamics are like your emotional life. Like that's not really important. That's not really adulting, but it kind of is the most important thing. Like your relationship to your parents, your relationship to your friends, your relationship to your family is like a basis of who you are. And if you can navigate those more smoothly or approach them with a little bit more sensitivity, you really, going home could be something that you really enjoy doing,
right.
Like there could be friction there and it could be reticent, but that doesn't mean that it can't be fixed. And if you examine it a little bit more and put the time and attention into making those relationships, you get out of it what you put into it, I think. And so that's something that we go into. And I think it's, a lot of people might say that it's not an important adulting topic. I disagree. I think it's very important.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the changes that I've seen in all adults is the fact that it's no longer about keeping up with the Joneses. No, I got to keep up with myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so true. There are things that, I mean, we keep kind of coming back to retirement, but that's one of those things where, like you said, you kind of are, might be given a 401k through work, and then realizing that's not enough to just do that, and realizing the other ways that you need to diversify yourself and to kind of grow that area just for you. This is not about comparing yourself to anyone but what is what is going to be best for you, and how to, I think we say, like, how to be a more responsible adult and just overall better human. It's completely just internally focused on what is the best path for you, presenting you with all the options and all the knowledge, because we're not here to tell you exactly what to do. We're here to give you the information and the research and the expert insights that we have, culled together to for you to make the decision on your own about what's right for you.
And we're learning about this podcast as we make it. Like, the first episode we did was about retirement. Couldn't have picked a more complicated topic to delve into on episode 1. And we really realized that, like, wow, like, we should actually start with, like, how do you make a budget? Like, how do you become more aware of the money that is coming into and going out of your life? If we can start from there, then we can really say, like, well, let's look at your utilities and your rent. Like, are you making enough money to cover that stuff? And if you are, then where can we put that money that you're setting aside? Well, if we look at all the subscriptions you have in your life, you might be spending hundreds of dollars a month on it with it, and you don't even use them, and you could be putting that money towards, into your 401k or putting it into a money market fund. What is that? Let's go into it. And you have tons of options nowadays, and there's so much information out there, and it's really just about learning what the options are, as Molly just said, and putting it to work for you. And so we're excited to get into the budgets of it all. We're excited to get into a more in-depth retirement planning and just investing and banking, because these are all things that we should know about.
Yeah. And it's more than just, finance, but, we cover, like we said, we cover so many different topics. But the other thing is that was important to me is that, like, when we cover, I feel like Matt has a much stronger financial literacy than I do, like much, much stronger. And I wanted to make sure that when we talked about these financial topics as well in some episodes, that it was broken down in a way that didn't make my own eyes just glaze over.
Yeah.
And so that I really kind of was able to say, oh, I get what's happening here. And that it was at that beginner level for basically anyone like myself who's kind of, again, they hear certain terms and it's just like, what?
And what we've learned is a lot of things in life are complicated on purpose. Like, our taxes are complicated on purpose to make your eyes glaze over and to make you feel like throwing up your hands and going, you know what, I give up. I'm just going to hire someone to do it. And, that's fair. I've been there. I have someone who does my taxes now, but I do it with a purpose. Like, I know exactly, where I'm directing them towards, the documents that I'm sending them, what I'm trying to save and scrimp around. But the more that you can dig into this complicated stuff, the more money you're going to save. Like I just said, a lot of things are complicated because they want to get more money out of you. They want you to give up and just say, forget about it. I'll send you $1,000 and we'll call it a day. Well, if you dig into it, you could save yourself a lot of time and money and make these, difficult, complicated systems work for you. You could figure out the health insurance is going to work best for your family and not go, you know what? I don't know, basic high deductible plan sounds fine to me, without actually knowing, what that means.
One of the toughest things about retirement, and my wife and I did all of our homework. We did everything. And then when it came time to make that move, I mean, we've got the big RV. We want to get out on the road, but we've been in this neighborhood for 30 plus years. We don't want to leave our friends.
Yeah. And that's a really tough topic too. I mean, and this is a great topic to kind of, for us to explore. I mean, I'm so glad you brought this up because, we're always open to people sharing what they want to hear about and what they want to learn about on this show. We just started a email for our listeners to send voice memos, send emails to, and it's grownupstuffpod@gmail.com.
Nice.
Because there are so many things. We have a very long list for ourselves personally that we're trying to figure out. But we want to make sure too, because there are going to be things like, to your point of like, what does that look like? And how can you have the best of both worlds? And what do you need to consider? There are topics like that we're not even thinking about and are really important to still cover.
Yeah, because, to your, I understand why that might be difficult because on one hand, community is so incredibly important to our mental health. But scratching that itch and traveling can really open you up to new experiences and to new people and new places and new things that can also be really, really important. So I do think that balancing the both of those worlds is probably the best step forward, but that's something that we should absolutely look into.
Yeah,
it
even has me thinking about, people who have to move to a new city and build a new community.
A new life.
Yeah. And you're not in school anymore where you're just making friends through school. It's, maybe it's through work, but finding other ways to kind of build that and find that community for yourself in new places.
Well, it's like that transition that a lot of older people are selling their homes and they're taking up renting, and it's like, oh my God! I mean, that has to be a shell shock to their mind, body, and soul, because A, it is that new community, but number two, your taxes. You can't have a tax write-off anymore because you're renting the apartment.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. There's like even that, we've covered home buying. So we're doing kind of the on the other end of that, where we did, when you're ready, what do you need to consider, property taxes, all of that. But you're right, from that opposite side of when you've had all that for a while, what are the other things you need to remember about, leasing an apartment that maybe you forgot about early on?
Wow. So these ideas, they come to you while you're driving? What's the story on that?
I think we just look at ways in which we are deficient in our own lives. There's always something going on in our lives. We're thinking like, God, this is so difficult, and why don't I know about this? Oh, this should be an episode.
Right.
And the amazing thing about having a podcast like this is that you can use it as an excuse to reach out to people that you wouldn't normally get to reach out to and learn more about life. I mean, we've met so many incredibly intelligent people who know so deeply well, the lane that they're in their professional lives, and have just learned so much from them. And so, we get them from our own lives, but we are hoping, as Molly said, to get some people calling in and sending us emails to that Gmail, which again is
grownupstuffpod@gmail.com.
So if there's something that you are just banging your head against a wall trying to figure out, please send us an email, and we'll get it addressed on the show.
How many shows are in the can? And the reason why I bring that up is because, podcasting is so fun. I love the connection with people. And like you're saying, you've got the experts and things on there. You never want to say no, because you'll never get that opportunity again.
We only have, I think, one in the can. So we've got a few more episodes left to go for this season, and we have topics that we're looking at. But again, if there's a great topic that comes through our email, then we're going to definitely, grab onto that and see what we can do.
But in the meantime, our first season is 15 episodes, 16 episodes.
16
and
episodes,
we just released the 5th episode of our 2nd season today about laundry. In 2 weeks, we're going to have one about plant care for anyone who's ever brought a plant baby into their lives and subsequently killed it unintentionally.
Plant parenthood, for sure.
Then that is the episode for you. But we're excited about talking about taxes is one that we're going to dive into. We're going to talk about banking and the basics of investing, the basics of budgets.
We're going to talk about sex too.
We're going to talk about sex.
Let's talk about sex. Let's do it.
So there's no topic that's off limits here.
Okay, let's talk about that banking, because I've been married for 32 years, and my wife and I still do not have an account together. I just don't want it. I want to be the CEO and president of my own incorporation.
Honestly, I think that's understandable. I mean, different people approach finances differently. And actually, the topic of couples and finances is a great topic that we could get into, because it's a very, very touchy subject for a lot of people. And a lot of people don't talk about it until they're married, and then they still don't talk about it. And then it just becomes this thing. And how do you address it? And so being able to talk openly and honestly about where you're at in your finances and what you have and what you don't have. And I think it's really important. Like, it was a process for my wife and I. And what we found that works best is that we have a joint credit card and everything. And the other great thing about that is that, like, you're not like, oh, I paid for this, I paid for that, and trying to figure it out. Like, every time we do something, if we're getting in a cab, if we're having dinner, we just put it on our joint credit card, and we pay that at the end of the month together, and we just split it. And everything else, that we do on our own time goes on our own credit card, or we pay for it with our own money. And that's kind of how we've decided to deal with it. We file our taxes together, and we have a joint investment account. But to your point, like, there's so many options, and there's so many different ways to navigate it, and there's a lot of emotion involved. Like, money is such an emotional topic, and just as much as it is like, math and numbers. And that's absolutely, I think that's a great episode. I think you're helping us in real time figure out the
Arrow, we're going to bring you onto the team.
The back half of season 2. Yeah.
You guys have got to come back to this show anytime in the future. When season 2 starts, please, let's make this happen. But first, we got to get through season 1 and let listeners know how they can change their lives through you guys.
Oh, thank you. Yes, you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, including the iHeart app. It's Grown Up Stuff, How to Adult.
I love it. You guys be brilliant today, okay?
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Have a great one.